G'day and welcome to this video on moving a large object with multiple objects inside it. So to kick off, this will probably be the last video I'll make for a couple of weeks at least, as I have to attend to some other things in the real world. The reason this one's taken a while, this is actually my 6th attempt to make this video, and a couple of times I had camera issues, but the main problem is normally most of my videos on this region in the last few weeks have just been single take. You get it unedited. This one is a lot more complicated than anything I've had to do in the last couple of weeks, simply because moving the build and not making a single error while trying to record a video is surprisingly difficult. And the reason I mention this is because I want you to have the same focus. If you're attempting a move like this, you need to line up all your ducks in a row, or it can go catastrophically wrong. If you do have everything in place, if you do take the time and focus, it's surprisingly easy. I do these moves all the time and have very little trouble, even from region to region. But it just takes one little thing to be out of place and it all falls to pieces. Okay, I've put the fear of God into you. Let's move on. The very first thing you need to do is ensure that up in the top menu there, that the advanced menu is showing. I think it actually comes on by default now with Firestorm. You used to, if you're running an older viewer, I think it's Control-Alt-D brings up the menu. In this particular version I'm using 663.67470, that's the version, and it's actually accessible through the preferences, and you'll see down in the window here advanced, show advanced menu, show developer menu. Well, we don't really need developer menu, but you definitely need that show advanced menu showing, and click OK. Bob's your uncle. Now let's go straight up to the advanced menu. Limit select distance, you want that unticked, untick it, okay? That allows you to select an object from a long way away by unticking it. That's what we want. And the other one directly beneath it, disable camera constraints, we want that ticked. So what that means is again, it's removing the limits on how far your camera can see, because we're going to be dragging this thing and zooming out, and we don't want it to lose focus, because if we lose focus we lose the arrows that allow us to move it. So okay, once that's done, fine. Now what we're going to do, if you saw my video yesterday on setting up a commercial district, I mentioned that I wanted to pop this shop in between the back of the ladies' shop and the naval base. I wanted it on this piece of green land. Typical of me in virtual worlds, I've changed my mind. I've decided that aesthetically it's not very pleasing. I want this to be up in the distance there. Oh, my head is blocking this from view, so I'm going to have to fly up there and show you. I've actually, if you've noticed my last few videos, I've been moving where I put my overlay of my head, because it keeps getting in the jolly road. So but I've put it up here and I'm still not winning. Okay, so you can see these buildings are very similar. So I'm going to drop it here in this spare space of land, and I'm going to grass under it later. So that'll keep all these buildings in a similar area, and the theme is much the same as well, so that's all right. They're all clothing and clothing shops predominantly. And then I'm going to move this building here, which is a bedding shop, so beds and furniture, you know, tables, kitchen chairs, that sort of thing. But you'll notice it's got this rattan sort of trim with the brown mahogany, and then it's got this sand and white paneling. Well, truth be told, that I actually pinched that way back in the day to I pinched it from the naval base, which in turn I pinched from a palace that I built 15 years ago. But it's the same sort of architecture, and I thought that shop would go much nicer in this place here, so because it matches up with the trim of the naval base. So we're going to do that. That's all going to happen later. Our only concern for this video is moving this shop. Now, I always land my avatar pretty much in the middle of the roof of the building, and the reason for that will be evident in a moment. So we right click on the building, and the first thing we're going to do is copy the position. We're going to put that in the description. I've already actually pasted it because, as I said, this is my 6th attempt at making this video, so it's already in my description. But yeah, paste it in your description if there's nothing else there that can't be pasted over. Also, paste it in your chat window. So down the bottom, we'll call up your chat window and paste it in there. Okay, and the reason we're doing that is we can always have, we'll have a record there for at least the next 15-20 minutes or so. You can also write it down if you've got moving parts within the shop, like you might have NPCs that walk around the shop, or the multi-position sort of NPC that moves about, and you're going to need to come back and change its reference coordinates within its script later on. I won't get into that too much now, but I'll show you how to do that briefly later. Mental note. Okay, so we'll close that chat window. Now what we're going to do is select the whole lot. So go right around it and make sure that everything is selected. Now you'll notice I've also picked up a bit of ground here which we don't want. I believe that's all a big linked object, so we're going to hold down the shift key and deselect. Okay, so I know this is correct, but we're going to go through it. Oh, sorry, one thing I'll show you, the reason I'm standing in the middle of the roof is I want, as a double check to make sure you are correct, that you haven't picked up any other objects, go up to edit axis at root in the window there and untick it, and the middle of everything you've selected should be right near your avatar. It should be right very much there. I'm using my avatar as a central point, and that tells me that yeah, it's pretty likely that I haven't picked up anything that I shouldn't have. So okay, we'll retick it again because I like to have that ticked. We're going to deselect the building itself because we want it to be the last thing. It's the thing that we took the coordinates of a minute ago. So we're going to use those coordinates. We need it to be the last object we select. So hold down the shift, click on the building. Hold down shift again, click on the building. And now those coordinates there and the ones in your object window should match the ones in your chat window. If all those chooks are lined up in a row, we're right to roll. Let's go. Now, I'm going to assume that you're moving your shop around other buildings or around other parcels. So this might be subdivided. In my case, none of this is yet, but say that shop was subdivided. Well, I've got to be able to move this building out into a public space that where I have move permissions. So I really don't want to be trying to drag it over the top of that shop, or it might eject it and I'll have parts everywhere. Sometimes they can jettison them into nowhere land and you never see them again. So that's why it's very important to get this right. I've chosen my path, so further down where my mouse is circling, that's those buildings I was showing you, and right here is where we're going to drop it. We also have to turn it 90 degrees. We'll do that as one of the earlier things actually, because it'll help us move it past this mountain. So we'll do that as one of the first processes. Very first thing we want to do though is get it way off the ground. And the reason we want to do that, so don't worry about your avatar, it's irrelevant at this point. Holding down the blue arrow, I'm going to drag that up into the sky. Mine's setting at about 50 meters. And from this angle you can see the reason why. If I accidentally deselect, which I'll do on purpose now, but say I'm trying to move things and I accidentally deselect because I've missed that arrow. Oh whoops, we're in trouble. It's just a matter of reselecting, and because it's way up in the sky there's nothing else I'm hitting. So I should have mentioned also that there were 62 objects and a land impact of 225. I have already written that down from the previous video, but yeah, make a record of that, how many objects and the land impact, because at the end you want to make sure that it matches what you've got selected at the beginning, in case you lose a prem or an object along the way, and then you know to go looking for it. Very rarely happens, and it's usually because your select distance has been limited, so that's why we went through and sorted that in the advanced menu first, but hopefully that won't be an issue for you. So again, I'm going to deselect the shop and reselect it, because I want that to be my central anchor object. Okay, now you can see where that blue line goes into the ground. That's going to be the thing I'll be watching all the way through this. First things first, now that we've got some elevation and I don't have to worry about it hitting the shop next door, I'm going to rotate it. Now, as per what I showed you in the content creation videos, we want to use perfect rotation to 90 degrees here. So we've highlighted the blue, and I'm going out here onto the grid so that it snaps to grid, and that is 90 degrees. Just double checking my objects again, 62 objects still selected, that's perfect. So now it's facing the right direction, and now we can squeeze it past that mountain without a fuss, hopefully. So I'm holding down the arrow again, the green arrow, to move it out. Now you can see here the red arrow angle is quite extreme. Don't be tempted to just suddenly hit that, because when the angle is that extreme, the whole build can just jettison off. You don't want extreme angles. So use your camera controls and swing it around. Now move your red. It usually goes for about 50 or 60 meters, then you'll get this little security icon saying it won't move anymore, and that's just, I don't know, it's some sort of limit that the game sets. Now it's getting a long way from my avatar, and I don't want to accidentally, even though we've put those settings in the advanced menu, I don't trust them absolutely. They have failed me before. So I'm going to move my avatar now. I'm just going to get him up and going by using the home button. I'm not using the mouse at all. Home button to get him flying, and that way he's still selecting that, even though, so I'm not using the mouse. I don't want to use the mouse for anything while I'm doing, except for moving that object. So I'm just using my arrows. You might use the A or the keyboard. I don't use it, I use the arrows. Okay, so I'm back to the mouse now. I want him close to the building throughout. Using the red key again. And we've squeezed past that mountain. The blue vertical is still showing I'm in the river. That's public land, so I don't have to worry. And that angle's getting a bit extreme again. We're nearly there. Fly right over here. Again, just using my arrow keys. Okay, we're going to drop this fella up here, and now we have to be extra careful because we want to bring him down. out of the sky. Now I want to, well, we will in a moment, but we're going to do his X and Y position as best as we can while it's up this high. I could have, at the beginning, I could have just taken a copy of the building and placed it and already that. That would have been the more sensible thing to do, but it's still okay, it's perfectly fine. So what we're going to do is get these XY coordinates to somewhere, to at least the nearest meter, but we will try and approximate it as much as possible to the final position. So I'll move my avatar again. Okay, so we can see that that's over the road. We don't really want it there. We're going to be very careful. So this is why I removed all the obstacles from the area except for the road itself, just in case I accidentally deselect this. I know that I can hover over the top of it now and reselect it without picking up any obstacles. So the end height is going to be the same. So what we'll do now, we've gotten that away from other obstacles. We're going to sort out the end height. Because my coordinates are, it's 20, let's call it the chat window again, 21.375, I want to get it down to. The avatar has to be quite close to the build, because if you're too far away it will start increasing those increments to the, because you're too far from the object to theoretically move it accurately. And there is some truth to that, but it can be a bit frustrating sometimes. So 21.375, there it is. So we've got the Z-axis finished. I know that when I drag a copy of that grass it's going to fit under there perfectly, so I don't need to worry about Z anymore. Now I want to move it on the Y-axis so it's the same distance from the road as those other buildings, so it looks symmetrical. Okay, and we want it to the nearest meter, which I happen to know is 146 because I've done this twice already. And right, and on the X-axis we're going to drag it out, say to there. Because there's oh no, that's not a hole. See, I just broke my own rule there. 236.5, we're going to move that to 236. Absolutely, whole meters. There's no reason I can't use whole meters there. So it's gone to 236 to 140, 236x to 146y. It was 564.114. I'm not, if you are moving objects like NPCs, it's often good if you can get those numbers to sort of be even exact 50s or exact 100 meters apart, which I do a lot with NPCs. I will actually, on this massive region where I've moved a single region onto one that is the size of 9 regions, I've been able to have that luxury of, if something had the coordinates of say 224, 114, I could make it 524 or 624, 114, and all I had to do was change the 100 number in the code of the NPCs. If you're not running NPCs, you don't need to worry about that. Okay, so that's basically it. The last thing we want to check is your objects and land impact are the same. 62 objects, 225, that's what I wrote down. That's perfect. I'm going to deselect it, and brilliant, everything's there, it's all in place. All I have to do now is landscaping, and that's all done. Now we'll just touch on, let's find an NPC. Let's go over here to Iramoto. Is the bloke at Tomato Motors at the moment? Yeah, there he is at the desk. So we'll use him. So this is an example of an NPC. Now if I was moving this Tomato Motors building, This guy pretty much sits at his desk all day, so he's not too bad. I think he only has 3 or 4 actions for the whole day. But if I wanted to, say I've moved this building, I've just done a move like we just did, but I've moved the building, say 5 meters along the red axis. I decided I wanted this bit of concrete thinner, and I've just moved the building 5 meters on the red. We'll keep it really simple because there's no need to complicate it for this example. So I'd go down to his position, and all these scripts are different, but at the end of the day you're going to have an XYZ coordinate, a vector in your script somewhere. So I happen to know that his is called to meter desk, which means the to meter miter's desk. So I'm going to find that animation, that sequence. Here it is up here, to meter desk. He has XYZ coordinates of 388.223 on the red, and I've moved the building 5 meters. All I would do is change that to 5 meters, add 393, so that 388 would become 393, and save it. Right, now that's automatically going to that'll be bloody right. Where are we? There we are, 1200, that's what we want. So I'm just going to call him back to that position. That was a fluke more than good management, but let's so this will check that he's moved 5 meters. Look at that, Bob's your uncle. So he's now, whenever that sequence is called, he's going to be in the right position. I will change that back now, and 388, save. He's disappeared again. I'll time this, what I'm typing here, I'm actually using, he's controlled by the time generator. You've probably seen my video on the time generator, and at different times of the day he does different jobs. There's 47 NPCs on this region, and most of them are controlled by the time generator. So there's always movement all day, but that's how that works. So that's all you need to do if you have NPCs or any other object attached to a building. So if you've moved the building and it has NPCs, it's that simple. That's about it, really. I think the next time I show you this, all this junk will be out of the road, and the region will be largely complete, at least for now. And yeah, I think that'll be it for a couple of weeks. Thanks for your company these last few weeks and your feedback. And I heard from a couple of you that I haven't heard from in about 15 years. I used to live on my regions in Second Life back in the day. And yeah, that was great. That was always good to catch up. But anyway, no worries. I'll chat to you again in a couple of weeks' time. Okay. Thank you. Bye.